The crystal chandeliers of Elysium cast a golden glow across the restaurant's marble floors as James Thompson, the establishment's impeccably dressed manager, surveyed his domain with practiced satisfaction. Table 37, he murmured into his headset, eyeing the Robinson family waiting patiently at the entrance, a distinguished black couple in their 40s with two well-behaved teenagers. Next to the kitchen service entrance, with a practiced smile that never quite reached his eyes, Thompson approached the family whose reservation had been made weeks in advance. "Right this way," he said, leading them past dozens of empty tables with panoramic city views, past tables of admiring patrons dining in comfortable silence, straight to the cramped corner where the kitchen's swinging doors released bursts of steam and the cacophony of shouting chefs. What Thompson couldn't possibly know was that David and Janelle Robinson didn't just have dinner reservations. They had plans to completely change the landscape of the city's culinary scene, starting with Elysium itself. David Robinson straightened his bespoke Italian suit jacket as he followed the restaurant manager, maintaining the composed expression he perfected during 2 decades of high-stakes business negotiations. At 47, he had built Robinson Capital from a small investment firm into a $3.2 billion empire that had transformed the city's skyline. Beside him, his wife Janelle, brilliant Harvard-educated architect and equal partner in both life and business, exchanged a knowing glance with their 17-year-old twins, Maya and Marcus. "Is this really our table?" Maya whispered, her voice barely audible above the clattering dishes and shouting chefs from the kitchen just feet away. "Perfect view of the dishwashers," Marcus replied under his breath, his sarcasm evident despite his hushed tone. James Thompson pulled out Janelle's chair with a flourish that contrasted sharply with the table's location. "Our chef's table," he announced with practiced enthusiasm, though everyone present knew this was hardly a coveted spot. "You'll be among the first to experience each dish as it emerges from the kitchen." "How convenient," Janelle observed, her poised smile revealing nothing of her thoughts as she smoothed her Valentino dress and took her seat. David's expression remained neutral as he scanned the dining room. Every table with white patrons enjoyed spectacular views of the city lights, comfortable spacing, and attentive service. He noted 2 other black couples and an Asian family similarly relegated to the restaurant's periphery. "We're celebrating tonight," David informed Thompson. "My children have both been accepted to Yale. We'd like your finest champagne." Thompson's smile flickered just slightly, the briefest flash of surprise before his professional veneer reasserted itself. "Of course, sir. May I recommend the Dom Perignon 2008? It's $450 per bottle." "Perfect. And we'll need a sommelier for dinner pairings as well. We plan to enjoy the full tasting menu." Thompson's estimation of the family subtly shifted at the mention of the expensive champagne, though not enough to offer them a different table. "Right away, sir." As Thompson retreated toward the wine cellar, the Robinson family leaned in closer. "It's exactly as your colleague described, Dad," Marcus said quietly. "Look around. Every single family of color is seated either by the kitchen or near the bathrooms." David nodded thoughtfully. Corinne wasn't exaggerating. Corinne Washington, a prominent black restaurateur and friend of the Robinsons, had recently been seated in the same area during an important business dinner. Her experience had been the catalyst for tonight's visit, what the Robinsons privately called a reconnaissance mission. "Should we say something?" Maya asked, her young face showing the indignation her parents had carefully concealed. Janelle patted her daughter's hand. "Not yet, sweetheart. First, we observe, document, experience." A waiter approached with ice water, studiously avoiding eye contact while placing the glasses on the table. The kitchen doors swung open again, releasing another blast of hot air and noise that no other diners had to endure. "I've been seated at chefs' tables around the world," David remarked, his voice low. "They typically feature direct views of the culinary artwork being created and personal interaction with the chef. Not." He gestured subtly to the food runners shouting at each other and the occasional dishwasher emerging to grab supplies. "The Robertson party got the Central Park view," Marcus noted, indicating an older black couple who had arrived after them being led to an equally undesirable table. "They've confused our names again." "Not confused," Janelle corrected gently. "They simply didn't consider our name worth remembering correctly." Thompson returned with a sommelier and the champagne, which was presented with elaborate ceremony. David tasted it with the expertise of a man whose wine cellar was valued at over $300,000, then nodded his approval. As the family toasted the twins' accomplishments, Thompson hovered nearby. "Have you dined with us before?" he inquired, clearly warming to the family now that they were ordering expensive items. "First time," David replied pleasantly, "though we've been quite interested in Elysium for some time now." Thompson couldn't possibly know just how interested they truly were. The Robinson family settled into a carefully choreographed performance they had perfected over years of navigating predominantly white spaces. On the surface, they were simply enjoying an elegant family dinner. Janelle complimenting the delicate flavors of the amuse-bouche, Maya enthusiastically explaining her Yale research plans to the sommelier, Marcus discussing basketball with their waiter, and David leaving generous tips for each course. Beneath this convivial tableau, however, all four were meticulously documenting everything they observed. David noted which servers were assigned to which sections. Janelle subtly photographed the restaurant's layout. The twins eavesdropped on nearby conversations, gathering intelligence on how other patrons were treated. Table 14 ordered after us, but they've already received their third course, Marcus murmured behind his water glass. And they've had their water refilled 4 times to our once, Maya added. By the third course, a sous vide duck breast that arrived lukewarm, other patterns had emerged. White patrons received detailed explanations of each dish from the executive chef himself, while the Robinsons' presentations came from hurried servers. Despite ordering an $800 wine pairing, their glasses frequently sat empty between courses. James Thompson visited their table infrequently, having apparently decided they were spending enough money to warrant basic service, but not enough for special attention. His focus remained on a table of celebrities near the window and a group of finance executives celebrating a deal. "Mr. Robinson," Thompson said, appearing suddenly as they finished their fourth course. "I understand you're in business yourself? What line of work, if I may ask?" "Investments," David replied simply, offering no further elaboration. "Ah, fascinating," Thompson responded with polite disinterest. "I hope you're enjoying everything. The kitchen can sometimes create a lively atmosphere back here." He gestured vaguely to the swinging doors that had crashed into Maya's chair twice during their meal. "We're observing quite a lot," Janelle said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Thompson nodded, clearly missing her meaning. "Wonderful. Our chef trained under Jean-Georges, you know. Very exclusive techniques." After Thompson departed, David checked his watch. Nathan should be arriving any minute now. Nathan Chun, their company's brilliant young CFO, was Chinese-American and another key part of their evening strategy. Right on cue, Nathan appeared at the restaurant entrance, impeccably dressed in a Tom Ford suit. The Robinsons watched as Thompson personally greeted Nathan, who had made a reservation under his own name with no connection to the Robinsons. When Thompson began leading Nathan toward another table by the kitchen, despite numerous premium tables remaining empty, David raised a discreet hand, catching Nathan's attention. "David, Janelle," Nathan called out with perfectly feigned surprise. "What a coincidence." Thompson's expression flickered with confusion as Nathan diverted from his path to approach the Robinsons' table. "Nathan, what wonderful timing," David said warmly, standing to embrace his CFO. "James, this is Nathan Chun, our Chief Financial Officer." "Nathan, James has been taking care of us tonight." "Chief Financial." Thompson's voice trailed off as the implications began to dawn on him. "Officer of Robinson Capital," Nathan supplied helpfully. "I've been running the numbers on this property all week." Fascinating potential. The color drained from Thompson's face as he looked between Nathan and the Robinson family, mental calculations clearly racing behind his eyes. "This property?" Thompson repeated weakly. "I was just about to tell the family," Nathan continued cheerfully, "that the inspection report came back clean. We can move forward with the acquisition whenever you're ready, David." David nodded thoughtfully, watching Thompson's expression transform from confusion to dawning horror. "Acquisition," Thompson managed, his professional composure cracking visibly. "Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere more private," David suggested mildly. "Though I must say, this table by the kitchen has given us quite the authentic experience of how Elysium is run." Thompson's Adam's apple bobbed nervously as he led the Robinsons and Nathan Chun to the restaurant's private dining room. a luxurious space the family hadn't been offered despite their expensive reservation. The room featured plush seating, sound insulation from the kitchen noise, and the spectacular city views they'd been denied at their original table. "Perhaps I could send over some complimentary desserts?" Thompson suggested, his voice pitched higher than normal. "Our chocolate souffle is award-winning." "That won't be necessary," David replied, his tone pleasant but firm. "But we would appreciate a moment of privacy, followed by a conversation with both you and the owner." "Mr. Harrington is actually on site tonight," Thompson said, anxiety evident in his rapid speech. "I'd be happy to see if he's available, though he's entertaining some important guests at the moment." "More important than the people buying his restaurant?" Maya asked innocently, earning a subtle approving nod from her mother. Thompson blanched further. I'll get him right away." As the manager scurried from the room, Nathan pulled out his tablet and brought up a detailed financial prospectus of Elysium Restaurant Group, which owned not only this flagship location, but 4 other high-end establishments across the city. Current valuation stands at $42.7 million for the entire group, Nathan explained, sliding the tablet toward David. "Based on tonight's observations alone, I'd recommend a significant restructuring of management personnel if we proceed. We've now conducted similar evaluations at all 5 properties," Janelle added, scrolling through a folder of photographs on her phone, all showing similar seating patterns for customers of color. "The pattern is systematic, not isolated." Marcus leaned forward eagerly. "Dad, are you really buying Elysium?" David shared a look with Janelle before responding. "Not exactly, son." The door opened to admit Thompson and a tall, silver-haired man with an artificial tan and an expression of forced joviality, Gregory Harrington, founder and CEO of Elysium Restaurant Group. "Mr. and Mrs. Robinson." Harrington boomed, extending his hand toward David. "What an unexpected pleasure. James tells me there may be some confusion about an acquisition." David shook the offered hand firmly. "No confusion, Mr. Harrington. Robinson Capital has been evaluating your restaurant group for potential investment for several months now." "Investment?" Harrington's smile faltered slightly. "I wasn't aware the group was seeking investors." "You weren't supposed to be," Janelle explained calmly. "We prefer to conduct our due diligence discreetly, experiencing establishments as regular patrons would." Nathan opened another file on his tablet. "We've documented seating patterns across all 5 Elysium properties over the past 3 months. In 97% of cases, patrons of color were seated in less desirable locations, near kitchens, bathrooms, or service stations, regardless of reservation time, party size, or apparent socioeconomic status." Harrington's artificial smile disappeared entirely. "Now see here, that's simply not." "We have the data, Mr. Harrington," David interrupted quietly. "Detailed documentation, including photography, witness statements, and comparative service metrics. Tonight was merely the final confirmation of what we already suspected." The owner's face flushed red. "Whatever you think you've observed, I assure you Elysium does not discriminate against anyone. We seek guests based on availability and reservation timing, nothing more." "Interesting," Marcus said, consulting his phone. "Because we made this reservation 4 weeks ago, specifically requested a table with a view, and arrived precisely on time. Yet at least 8 parties who arrived after us, all white, received window tables." "That's circumstantial at best," Harrington scoffed, though sweat had begun to bead along his hairline. "Perhaps," David conceded. "But the class action lawsuit being prepared by 17 former customers of color has documentation that's far more than circumstantial." The room fell into stunned silence as David calmly sipped his water. "Lawsuit," Thompson whispered, looking as though he might faint. "Robinson Capital isn't looking to acquire Elysium, Mr. Harrington," Janelle explained. "We're financing the legal representation of those who've experienced discrimination at your establishments. Unless, of course, you're open to an alternative approach." Gregory Harrington sank heavily into one of the plush chairs, his previous bluster evaporating like morning fog. James Thompson remained standing, his posture rigid with tension, eyes darting between his boss and the Robinson family. "What exactly are you proposing?" Harrington finally asked, his voice considerably subdued. David leaned forward, resting his elbows on the polished table. "Elysium Group has built a reputation for culinary excellence, Mr. Harrington. The food here tonight was exemplary. The service and seating policies were not. We're offering you an opportunity to transform your business practices before public litigation damages your brand irreparably. Nathan slid a document across the table, a comprehensive proposal outlined in meticulous legal language. We're suggesting a partnership rather than a punishment, he explained. Robinson Capital would acquire a 40% stake in Elysium Group, with explicit oversight of operational policies, hiring practices, and customer experience. Harrington skimmed the document, his expression darkening. This is tantamount to a hostile takeover. Actually, Janelle interjected smoothly, it's an extremely generous alternative to what would likely be a very public, very damaging legal battle. Our attorney has already been contacted by 3 major news outlets interested in covering the story. The twins exchanged subtle glances. They'd witnessed their parents' negotiation tactics before, but never from quite such an intimate vantage point. Maya suppressed a smile as she recognized the strategic pressure being applied. 40% is excessive, Harrington countered, some of his businessman instincts returning. I might consider 15. 35%, David replied without hesitation. With a mandatory review of all current management staff and implementation of our comprehensive diversity training program. Thompson shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Harrington, perhaps we should consult with legal counsel before. I am perfectly capable of handling my own business affairs, James, Harrington snapped, then immediately seemed to regret his tone. He turned back to David. 25%. No management dismissals without cause. 30%, Janelle countered. Management stays, contingent upon successful completion of our training program and demonstrated improvement in customer service metrics across demographic groups. The negotiation continued with surgical precision, each concession and demand carefully calculated. The twins watched, fascinated, as their parents, who had built their reputation on ethical investment and community development, worked to transform a business from within rather than simply destroying it from without. Finally, Harrington extended his hand. 28% equity stake. You get 2 board seats. Management undergoes your training program, and we implement new seating and service protocols effective immediately. David and Janelle exchanged a look laden with silent communication before David accepted the handshake. With quarterly review of progress metrics and an option to purchase an additional 10% if benchmarks aren't met. Agreed, Harrington said grimly. Excellent, David replied, his tone warming considerably. Now, Nathan will work with your team on the details, but let's begin with something immediate. I believe you have customers of color currently seated in undesirable locations. Thompson blinked rapidly. Yes, 3 parties besides yourselves. Please move them to premium tables immediately, with complimentary champagne and an honest explanation of why they're being relocated, Janelle instructed. No invented excuses about reservations or table availability. But that would be admitting, Thompson began. Exactly, David interrupted. Accountability begins with acknowledgement. That's step 1 of the program. As Thompson hurried to comply, Harrington regarded the Robinsons with a mixture of resentment and reluctant respect. You planned this entire evening, didn't you? The reservation, the seating, your CFO's timely arrival. We did, David acknowledged without apology. After hearing numerous accounts from friends and colleagues about their experiences here, we decided to see for ourselves. What we found was consistent with those reports. And now instead of merely dining at my restaurant, you own part of it, Harrington observed dryly. We prefer to think of it as investing in its better future, Janelle corrected. Beginning tonight. 6 months after what became known internally as the Robinson intervention, Elysium had undergone a remarkable transformation. The restaurant now boasted the most diverse staff in the city's fine dining scene, with training programs that had become industry standards. Most significantly, customer satisfaction scores had increased across all demographic groups. At a special dinner celebrating the changes, David Robinson addressed the assembled staff and management team, including a notably more humble James Thompson and a surprisingly enthusiastic Gregory Harrington. The true measure of a business isn't found in its profit margins alone, David told them, but in its capacity to serve all people with equal dignity and excellence. What we've accomplished here isn't merely about addressing discrimination. It's about recognizing that excellence is impossible without equity. Janelle raised her glass in a toast. When we first dined here, we had two options: to tear down or to transform. Destruction is always easier than reconstruction, but rarely as rewarding. The lesson we hope everyone takes from our journey, David continued, is that change doesn't always require scorched earth. Sometimes the most powerful transformations happen when those with the capacity to enforce accountability choose instead to invest in possibility, to see potential where others see only problems, and to build bridges where others would burn them. Thank you for joining us for this powerful story of transformation and accountability. The Robinson family's approach to addressing discrimination reminds us all that meaningful change often requires both courage and strategic thinking. If this story resonated with you, please take a moment to like this video and share it with others who might find inspiration in the Robinsons' example. Your simple click helps stories like this reach more people who need to hear them. Have you ever witnessed or experienced discrimination in a business setting? Or perhaps you've been part of creating positive change in your workplace or community. Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might provide valuable perspective or encouragement to others facing similar situations. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring real-life stories that challenge our thinking and show pathways to positive change. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next video exploring extraordinary moments of transformation in unexpected places. Until next time, remember that sometimes the most powerful response to injustice isn't just to point it out, but to roll up your sleeves and help create a better alternative.